Welcome to TDX. We're excited to talk to you about enhancing data governance in Agentforce. Quick reminder that Salesforce is a publicly traded company, so please make all purchasing decisions based off of products that are generally available today. I really want to start by saying thank you. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for those online wanting to learn and grow your Salesforce skills. My name is Tara. I'm a product marketing manager here on the Data Cloud team, and today I'll be joined by two amazing PMs, Varun and Upwan. Do you both want to introduce yourselves?
Hello, everybody. My name is Varun Dewan. I'm a Senior Director Product in the Data Cloud team, and we work very closely on governance and a bunch of other features. We'll be talking to you more about it today.
I'm Upwan Chatra. I'm on the product lead on the governance team as well. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the session.
Amazing. So we're in wave 3 of the AI revolution, the world of agentic AI. And what does that mean? That means that we're changing the way we're working in the workforce. Employees are not only managing other employees, but they're overseeing the management of digital agents. And that means that data security, data compliance, and data governance is more essential than ever before. It's said by the year 2027, trust, risk, security, and management will be the key pillars of differentiation for successful AI. But fragmented data and governance complexity still remain a challenge. In this AI age, data is being ingested differently. It's not just structured data, your traditional rows and columns, it's unstructured data as well. And governing unstructured data, well, that's difficult. Similarly, data is being ingested across various sources, whether it's third-party data from Workday, zero-copy data from AWS or Databricks, even CRM data from Salesforce. The way governance is managed across each of these data sources is different, which means scalability becomes a challenge. Scaling governance across your entire organization is complex. There's platform convergence as well. You might be using one platform for data management, one platform for analytics. How do you make that unified? And then, of course, compliance and security is always top of mind. In the world of AI, how do you comply with regulations? That's where Salesforce comes in. Salesforce is our deeply integrated platform, and it's already secure and trusted. Data Cloud is built on top of that platform, and Data Cloud is the heart of the Salesforce ecosystem. With Data Cloud, you can ingest data, whether it's structured or unstructured, directly into Data Cloud. It can be from any source, zero copy, third party, Salesforce, anything just comes directly into Data Cloud. That data is unified and harmonized, and you can act on it across your entire Salesforce ecosystem. And we are excited to bring native governance tools to Data Cloud. So technically, you could present this with separate sessions, right? It's very complex how Data Cloud works, but I'm going to break it down quickly for you. You can connect your data to any data source with zero copy, ingest that data, harmonize that data, and then now we're adding this governance layer where you can govern that data, which means all your data across Data Cloud is governed, and you can action on that data, on that governed data across your entire Customer 360 and Agentforce. Now we're excited to introduce Data Cloud Governance to you. Data Cloud Governance allows you to govern data across your entire Customer 360 and Agentforce at scale. With Data Cloud Governance, you can easily govern both structured and unstructured data. You can enforce consistent data access across all your data sources, both ingest and zero copy, and you can establish a secure and private connection. With our tools like Private Connect for Data Cloud and Platform Encryption for Data Cloud, you know that you can prevent vulnerabilities and protect sensitive data information. Now I'm going to pass it over to Upwan to talk to us more about Data Cloud governance.
Yeah. So the diagram over here, I'm going to kind of start with the center and explore the different parts of what makes the governance investments. So the first part is in the center, we've natively built a number of capabilities that allow you to manage both security and governance at scale for all your data. The first piece that's closer to the infrastructure layer is the platform encryption. So all our data is already encrypted at rest, but now we're actually giving you capabilities to manage keys, customer managed keys, within your platform. So you can rotate those keys and they're Salesforce managed. As a roadmap priority, we will allow you to bring your own key and extend those capabilities. The next piece on that is the data space management. This has been a GA feature for over a year now, and this allows customers to manage security across business units, as an example, between regions. So you're segregating data depending on what your needs are. And after we released this capability, we were getting asked about how do I go to the next level of governance and security. I want to do granular data governance and security so that I can manage and I can control who has access to what data depending on the user context or the context of the request, depending on where it's coming from. That's where the next two sets of investments around AI tagging and classification and policy-based governance is what we are announcing today. AI tagging and classification allows you to tag or label information, whether it's structured or unstructured data. And the benefit of this is this allows you to govern your data at scale, whether it's in a downstream operation, it's related to a source object, and so on. It gives you consistency and scale, and we'll talk more about this capability. And finally, the policy-based governance that builds on top of our investment with AI tagging and classification allows you to define access policies for both metadata and data, dynamic masking policies for your data so that you can obfuscate data using different algorithms, and finally data purpose policies depending on what the purpose of the usage is. It allows you to do row-level security. The combination of this gives you a lot of flexibility in defining how an admin wants to set up their policies depending on what their business needs are. The two other things on the left and the right, so I'll start with the right. An important consideration we had when we started building this was that we didn't want admins and users to need to define these policies every time there was a new use case. When they defined a new application, they onboarded new use cases. As an example, we wanted it to just work. So the policy-based governance allows and applies to any use case, any surface area that's related to Data Cloud, because we made these investments deep into the platform and it's at the access and the query layer. Whether it's Agentforce, whether it's analytics, or whether it's a new use case that gets added in the future. Now I'm going to go to the left side of the slide where we talk about the range of sources. We obviously cover structured and unstructured sources coming from the Salesforce ecosystem. But equally important in the world of agents and Agentforce is unstructured content that's coming from a zero-copy partners or other sources. We don't always have the right context for it, but when it comes in, AI tagging applies to all of that data with consistency, and it can be applied with policies for all of those use cases on the right. Finally, and a really important piece of this puzzle was the third-party enterprise governance integrations. Because our customers came back and told us that we've already invested in tool X and tool Y. Examples are Calibra, Alation, and others. They're already doing enterprise governance with those tools. How do we ensure that the work that they've done in those tools is not lost? And we've built metadata integrations that allows us to bring, say, tags or metadata signals or like quality and so on into the context of the data that we're managing in Data Cloud without losing the work that you've already done. And the other way is also important. Say you actually define some tags or policies or quality signals in Data Cloud, and you want to make that available in one of these enterprise governance tools so that you can see it in the context of everything else in your reference architecture. So that bidirectional integration is what the box on the bottom left kind of displays.
Yeah, thank you, Juan. So before we go into more details, our goal here is to give you an overview, but at the same time dive deeper to give you clarity on how each one of these features work. Let us start with the demo. Let's see how all of this coming together in action that works with an agent. Let's see how that looks like. So here I am. My name is Ken in this recording, and I am looking at and talking to an agent and having a conversation about my credit card. When I have this conversation with this agent, the agent has the ability to look at my structured and unstructured data. What you see here is both a combination of structured and unstructured data coming together. But the key thing here is the guardrails that we have put on top of the agent. You don't want agent in this scenario to have access to additional credit card information. You don't want them access to certain other attributes, and you can easily set them up. Here, I'm having a conversation with this agent to increase my credit limit. That's where this agent is not able to help me, and that's the interaction between a digital agent and human comes very handy. Once this particular conversation is transitioned, the digital agent is transitioning and transferring this conversation from the digital agent to the human. Here I am inside the service console. I'm Alex. Alex is looking at all the conversation that just happened with the customer Ken and the digital agent. So all the context is still there. But at the same time, the request that the customer made for increasing the credit limit, that's a request that the employee agent, in this case Alex, will be able to take care of. Alex has her own agent as well. With this agent, Alex is able to see much more information that the other agent was not able to see. That's where the guardrails come into play using the governance that we will talk more in detail. Here, we are able to look at information coming from Snowflake. So the human agent working with their assistant is looking at Snowflake data, looking at S3 data, structured and unstructured, coming back with all the information that's necessary. They're asking a question in terms of, to increase the credit limit of this customer, what should I do? There is data about this customer in Snowflake. There's data about this customer in unstructured information. There's data about this customer in CRM. Looking at all these three things together, the agent is able to seamlessly give guidance and increase the credit limit seamlessly with this particular flow. So as part of our overall governance portfolio, we have a bunch of things which we are all really, really excited about. So we are categorizing this into governance and security at a high level. What you see on the left are two capabilities that are currently in beta and two that are currently already in GA. One is the AI tagging and classification. This, like Upan just mentioned, is a capability that's currently in beta. It works hand in glove with access policies. Policies are extremely critical in our overall ecosystem, and you'll see more and more on that today. Data spaces, I'm assuming a lot of you are already familiar with, is a GA feature, very well adopted with a lot of our customers. We'll talk also more in detail for that. Dynamic masking is another policy framework capability that you'll see going into next as well. Security, whether it's for encryption or for private connectivity, both very critical for a lot of organizations, especially for regulated industries. So both those capabilities are currently, one is available in, both of them are currently available in GA. So let's dive deeper. Let's go into more and more and start peeling the onion in terms of what all these capabilities mean from a governance context. First is data spaces. Data spaces was the first innovation that we did, which is currently very well adopted with our customers who are in multiple brands, multi-region, multi-department. Extremely critical for those customers to have a single instance of Data Cloud, but have a logical segregation of data by these brands, regions, and departments. They need autonomy for each brand and department. Without data spaces, they had to go create multiple instances. That's no longer a need anymore. Within a single instance of Data Cloud, you can now create these virtual partitions and have your autonomy, but still coexist inside the single instance. So extremely critical and very powerful feature.
The next feature is AI tagging and classification. We briefly touched on this, but the important part here is that in Data Cloud, we have data coming from many different sources, sometimes streaming, and it doesn't always follow the same format. It uses different storage, as an example, especially with unstructured content. And I think gone are the days where we can expect a human go and label information. You can probably do some level of validation, but you need an AI-based technique to do this at scale. And we've given flexibility depending on the type of use case that you're trying to solve. If there's a marketing use case, you might have a little more flexibility in just accepting the recommendations that the AI engine is giving. Whereas if you are in a more regulated, maybe a banking use case, you want to have some human involvement to approve the suggestion that the algorithm might be making. The other piece that's really important is we do the tagging based on the metadata definition, and we use different sources depending on what's available and so on. But we do it consistently for all Salesforce data as well as data that's coming from outside our ecosystem through the zero copy network. Finally, propagation of tags. What was really important as we started thinking about the problem was how do we ensure that any tags that are set in the source objects get replicated in any downstream objects that are related to the source object. Say I'm actually doing calculated insights or segmentation and I create a DMO related with that or a table related with that. How do I ensure that the source object on where the information came from is reflected in all the downstream things? This is really important when you start thinking about the agent example that Varun talked about, because usually it's a combination of these tables and views and so on that's reflecting in the agent interactions that are going on. and doing the same level of fidelity with access controls on the digital agents as your admins are doing on human agents without doing additional work on policies was a critical foundational assumption that we wanted to make as we built the solution. And here I go into a little more detail on how we think about tags. So object field names, so we do tagging on both the table names or the object names as well as the corresponding field names, and we use a bunch of information on that. Tags could be PII, it could be a sales table, so it could be a reference, even though we're focused on access policies, but the use cases go far beyond that with improving search and so on. Think of classification as a grouping of tags. So if I have like a HIPAA classification, I know that this information is related to healthcare and I need to manage and govern it a certain way. And I need to do that consistently. The interesting thing about this is if a new object comes in, I don't have to redefine my policies and redo the work. If it's tagged as HIPAA, automatically all the policies that I have defined related with HIPAA information will get enforced on that new object that just came in. The same goes with any new applications. And finally, the policy piece, which actually starts bringing the context for enforcement and then combining that with the users that you've already defined in your Salesforce ecosystem, completes the picture and ensures consistent policy enforcement across the lifecycle for any use case in Data Cloud.
So AI-based tagging and tagging in general lays a foundation which is very critical for the work that we are doing. So the two things to keep in mind is the scalability and the consistency, and you'll see us touch on both these concepts in the coming slide. Scale is coming based on the tagging framework that Opan just talked about. This is important, which is adding an additional layer of metadata where you may have hundreds of objects, thousands of fields coming from so many different sources, but they are all PII data, and you can just simply tag them. That's where policy-based governance comes in, working with both tagging and the overall framework consistently. So policy-based governance is a framework that we are building where you can create multiple different types of policies, whether it's access policies for object, rows, or fields, or as masking policies, data use policies, retention, and more in future. This is the framework that allows you to manage and create policies at scale for your entire organization and manage it from a single place rather than going into different genres. So that's why policy-based governance and tagging are both critical to the success of the overall governance story. To define a policy, these are the 5 components to keep in mind. First is the metadata. We already touched on the tagging metadata that is available, but anything that you can think of as a metadata, whether it's an object name, a field name, a user attribute, a user permission, these are all metadata that is available to this entire framework to take advantage for. So metadata, core component, and we'll build on top of that. Next is the resource. That's where you associate a metadata to a resource, whether it's an object or it's a field, and in future more and more objects. You are tying the metadata with the field, which is why you'll be able to create these policies at scale. Next is the subject. Users are extremely important in the entire ecosystem of creating policies. So just like you are defining policies on resource, which users do these policies apply to is equally important as well. Even for the subject, in this case, you don't have to define a policy or a definition for a particular person. You are defining these policies on the metadata of your users. So these are the users who belong to this department, this region. You can use those attributes to your advantage and then create these abstract policies. So a person transitions from one department to another, you don't need to go redefine a policy. A new person comes and joins this department. Just because their attributes are created appropriately, the right policies are taken into effect. Once you have the metadata, resource, and subject is where the policy definition comes in. This is the layer where you define what action you are trying to achieve with the policy. Are you doing an object level policy? Are you doing a masking policies and more? And enforcement is the consistency that we are introducing and providing, where once you have defined all these things, we ensure that irrespective of agent, segment, or any scenario for that matter, we are going to consistently enforce these policies across all surface areas. The first set of policies that you'll see us investing in is the access policies. This is where the object level, field level, row level that you're all familiar with. So access level policies are what we are calling as ABAC, attribute-based access control. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this terminology, but you'll see us investing in this platform more and more. As you apply these object, field, and row level policies, these policies are defined at scale. where you are using the metadata, like I mentioned. You might have scenarios saying that I want to grant access to anything that's finance related to a certain group, and I don't want some certain users to have access to PII data. All this can be seamlessly created with the simple policies when you have tags in place, when you have your objects being tagged in the right manner, and when you have these policies defined in a scalable manner.
And Varun, before you go ahead, I want to kind of call out a couple of examples. So I've actually worked a lot in the privacy space. I've worked with chief information security officers. And one of the differences in the approach that we've taken is we are bridging the gap between a chief privacy officer's responsibility and a CISO's responsibility, because no longer are you doing two sets of policies. You're really bringing that together so that customers can see the holistic view of how their data is being used, how their data is being governed, how their data is being enforced. Instead of doing it in two places, you now have a holistic view. And this is really critical because of the convergence of the use cases that Tara talked about in the beginning, where you no longer have an analytics platform and a data platform and an agent platform. It's really converging together to one thing. And that's why our foundational investment was to think about this holistically through a single lens. So I want to talk about data masking. I want to talk about dynamic data masking policies. So far what Varun described with ABAC or attribute-based access control was at the metadata. So as a user, you might not want user 2 to even know that an SSN field exists because they're probably in marketing and they're not in the HR. But now we're actually getting into data access so that when I give access to a marketeer, they may not need to see detailed information about my PII, but they might want to see marketing-related information or segment-related information. So that way I can still give them access, but I can obfuscate the SSN or any PII information that they don't need to have access to. The great thing about this investment is you don't have to do anything separately. Using the same policy predicates that Varun talked about, we simply extend and add a condition that says, in this scenario, mask this information using these masking rules or these redaction rules. So without doing anything different, it's not a separate masking policy. Using the same policy predicates, you can actually extend and use that. And this goes back to the same benefits we talked about with scale and not leaving any gaps when you're defining policies that you want consistently applied through the lifecycle of data.
Yeah, so I hope you're able to see the vision in terms of our policies, and we are giving you two examples. So today for access level policies for object, rows, and fields, and with the masking policies next. Yeah, so both these things are critical for us, like I mentioned, where masking policies and object level policies coming together using the same framework is one of the key things, and you'll start to see us invest more and more on different types of policies in future. But one of the things that keep coming back to us in terms of a question that a lot of our customers and some of you have asked as well is, how should I think about data spaces and how should I think about policy-based governance? And the way we look at it is both have an equally important role to play in most of the organizations. Data spaces is a macro level concept versus the policy framework is a granular level concept. What data spaces is really good at is the ability for you to have different brands and regions have a segregated and manage your access, manage your objects, manage your autonomy at scale at a macro level. So if you have multiple brands, multiple regions, data spaces is a perfect fit because that gives you the ability to manage your business at a macro level. Policy-based governance is more at a micro and a granular level where you might have different personas. Inside a brand, you might have two different users who have different access. Inside a department, like in HR, you have HR manager and you have a recruiter. In these cases, they are part of the same data space because it's the same business, but they require different access. The manager needs access to more information and the recruiter needs access to limited information. Those are the personas in which the granular level using the policy-based framework comes into handy. So both play a very important role. There is a fit for each one of them, and it's depending on the business scenario that we should recommend our customers the right thing to do.
Yeah. And most customers will end up using a combination of that to get detailed, granular access controls, but at the same time be able to manage it with the flexibility that a platform like Salesforce can provide.
Yeah, exactly. So we've talked and looked at access so far. So stepping back, just a quick summary, what we have seen so far is the ability for you to manage it via data spaces, a macro level concept. Then we said you can now introduce AI tagging, use the tagging and a policy framework, combined together to go granular in nature, and there can be different genres of policies you can create, whether object, field, row, masking, and whatnot. Next, let's step out of the policy and let's look at our governance in other dimensions. The next thing it's currently already available in GA, but more investments is coming into this, is the platform encryption for Data Cloud. The first feature that is available GA right now is what we call as a customer managed key. Our data was always encrypted, but one of the key asks that a lot of our customers were asking for is that the key that we are using to encrypt the data is something that our customers wanted to manage. And to support that feature is where we introduced the customer managed key, which was introduced last year close to Dreamforce. The next feature we are working on is external key management. This is where our customers are asking us that I am already managing my keys in AWS KMS, which is Amazon's key management system. And if I am maintaining a key there, is there a way for us to directly integrate with it and use the key to encrypt the data? And that's exactly what we are doing. So with EKM, we are now making sure that you can maintain and create your key rotation, your key entire lifecycle remains in AWS KMS, but we'll be able to integrate with that and manage and encrypt your data in Data Cloud using the key that's stored in AWS KMS. So you'll start to see us more and more investing in this overall genre.
And let's talk a little bit about Private Connect. We have a couple more slides, and we have a really cool demo that we want to show as well. So Private Connect, the reason we started investing in this was as we were doing the zero copy network and connecting to Snowflake, Google, BigQuery, and so on, customers were saying that I have some really sensitive information in some of these sources, and I want to ensure that when I'm actually exchanging that information with Data Cloud, I want the connection to, I don't want that data to see the public internet because that data is sitting in behind a private VPC. And with Private Connect, we provided that capability that allows a secure connectivity in a way that that data never sees the public internet. And we started with BigQuery and Snowflake on AWS, and you'll continue to see investments with Azure and Google and other systems. This is really, really important from an agent point of view, because to do interactions similar to what Varun showed in the demo with a banking use case, you want to make sure that the sensitive information that we're bringing in and servicing up in an agent is protected in the same way, even though it's a digital agent. If anything, the bar there is higher because you don't have a user that's directly doing it, but you expect the same, if not better, level of governance and security when digital agents are involved.
By tagging metadata and data, admins can autonomously label and classify unstructured or structured data, for instance, marking records as financial or personal. These tags help manage policies at scale, ensuring that critical information remains accessible only to authorized personnel. Policy-based governance is a framework to easily create and manage multiple policies in a single place for managing your organization's complex needs. Access policies are created using tags and can be created at the object, field, or record level. Policies allows an admin to author, enforce, and manage policies to ensure that only the right data is surfaced to the right people or agents at the right time and can be applied consistently to all surface areas in Data Cloud, including Agentforce, analytics, segmentation, and more. With a dynamic masking policy, an admin can create a policy to obfuscate sensitive information with built-in access-based security that grants or dynamically masks sensitive data based on the user context. For example, an Agentforce service agent may need to verify a social security number to take action on a request, but the full value remains hidden, ensuring data remains protected while still enabling necessary workflows. To establish private, direct connections between Data Cloud and zero-copy data sources, such as Snowflake or Amazon Redshift, Private Connect for Data Cloud allows admins to securely manage sensitive data by keeping network traffic completely isolated from the public internet. With customer-managed keys, a feature of platform encryption for Data Cloud, admins have more control over data security by managing their own encryption keys for data already at rest within Data Cloud. This ensures that all data at rest stays protected, helping organizations meet compliance requirements and keep sensitive information secure with confidence.
And like you can see in the demo, like creating a policy and enforcing a policy is super simple. So what you saw in the beginning when we showed the agent demo, the agent had limited access to information all thanks to the policy framework and the AI-based tagging. All that was done just seamlessly using the simple policy framework that you just saw, where we wanted limited information available to the agent. You defined the tags associated to those objects and then created a policy associated to them. But then you have multiple agents. Agent 1 had limited access, but Agent 2 had expanded access. Human agent has a completely different set of access. All that can be defined using a seamless enforcement engine that we have built. So here are some key use cases we wanted to talk about. First is the agent scenario. We already showed you a demo, but it was underlined using the same framework that you just saw, where you can have different agents and different agents can have different access, and you can seamlessly define that using the ability that we just saw. Next is analytic. Analytic is an extremely important scenario where different users, part of different organizations may have different access, but they need to see the analytical view where I may have a broader access, but somebody may have a completely different access. So you can open up the same dashboard, same report, but the data that is rendered in that dashboard and report is personalized based on what is this individual's access control, and that's where these policies can be seamlessly created and applied. Third is segmentation or CI or IR or any other scenario which is identity resolution calculated inside. This is where the policies can be easily created as well. I may be a marketeer for a brand where I do not have access to certain objects and fields, and a different marketeer does not have access to certain objects and fields. When you define these policies, when I log into the segmentation canvas, I can only see the objects and fields that I have access to, and a different marketeer will also see only objects and fields that they have access to. And it works seamlessly also with zero-copy integration. The beauty of this entire product is that since we are at a metadata exchange level that Upwan just talked about, since we know the metadata of Snowflake, you can now set policies in Data Cloud for the zero-copy data as well, whether the data is in Data Cloud natively or the data is natively stored in Snowflake.
And finally, to wrap it up, I think if there's a few things we want you to take away from this presentation is you define your policies once, and it works for all of the use cases on the right. You don't have to define it a second or a third time. You don't have to make exceptions. When you start gradually going towards more agent use cases, it actually just works. AI tagging and classification helps you ensure that you can do this at scale and with consistency across a range of use cases, including new applications that you might build on top. Data space management already is helping our customers across the world manage governance and security. Granular security and the new investments helps you go a level higher with more granular controls. And finally, the boxes on the left, this is a really important piece in the world of agents, where we are no longer confined to CRM transactional data, but this works when we bring in data from external systems, including our zero-copy network partners, so that when we bring in data and you have something that's defined as confidential in Google, you want to make sure that we treat the data consistently in Salesforce when that data comes in. And that ensures, with the metadata exchange investments, that ensures that that's possible. Finally, the third-party integrations allows us to bring more fluidity in any work that you might have already invested in your other systems or an enterprise governance tool that you might have invested in, whether it's consent signals, quality signals, policies, tags, and so on. We want to bring fluidity in how you can use those investments in the Salesforce ecosystem. And with that, we want to thank you for taking some time to attend the session. We are happy to take any Q&A after the session is done. Thank you.
Thank you.